Hello and welcome back to number 277 of the Whatnots review show. And yes, we have our cameras off because we're in costume and we're about to do a costume reveal thing. Happy Halloween to everyone out there. We hope you are having fun and being safe and getting all kinds of candy. But yeah, Melissa, we have some costume. You challenged me to do some costumes that were based off things we've covered here on the show. So I'm excited to see what we both come up with here.
I'm the one who issues the challenge every year, and still I feel like every time you outdo me.
I don't know about that. The ones we did for the captain's log this past week, I think, were equally ridiculous. So I mean, I had fun with them, but for this week, let's I'll do a countdown from 3, like I tend to do over on the Reactor Core, and then we can turn our cameras on and see who we're dressed up as and get the show started. All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, cute. Oh, you went back there. Oh, nice. That's a very good costume.
Yeah, thank you.
So we first started trying this last year. Let's dress as something from this year. So there are earlier years of the podcast that have not been covered. You are free to mill from them.
Yes. Yeah. And then your costume. I'm trying to think and remember tattoos, stars. I see.
No, they're the tattoos. The fact that they are tattoos is the only thing that matters. These are just what the tattoos were in the package that I have. The fact that it's a star means nothing.
Okay, so who's in a cutoff shirt, has tattoos?
It's not supposed to be a cutoff shirt. I just could not find a sleeveless shirt that was the specific color that I needed.
Okay, so then I'm guessing now Dom Toretto in
No. I told you it's not supposed. It's if I give you this
costume then.
If I give you the very important message that John Wick will be excommunicado in 1 hour, do you remember who I am? I'm not a specific named character. I'm one of those switchboard operator ladies from the John Wick movies.
Oh,
who wear the little pink blouse and like the little pencil skirt with their hair in their bun, and they look so classy, but they're like covered in tats.
Yes,
and they're
absolutely.
like sending out all the bounties and telling you you've got 1 hour, and then you can go knife John Wick. Get at it. There
you go. My next guess would have been Columbo, but I'm kidding. No, yeah. Now that you mention it, I think you did a fantastic job. Before we got on recording, you were like, I put some extra time into this that I don't think was.
I had to put so many of these individual little temporary tattoos on my body, and like every one of them takes like 2 minutes. I was sitting there for like an hour. I'm like, I'm not done yet. Why does this take so long?
Good stuff. Good stuff. If you guys did not know, right here on the Whatnots review show, each and every week we have a different story to talk about. It could be a manga, it could be a movie, it could be a comic book, anime, TV show, all sorts of stuff. We come back here, we read it, and we watch it. And then we come back here and discuss it. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson for some Hellboy.
Yeah.
We're continuing our coverage on Hellboy. Also wrapping up Spooky Month, which is interesting because normally the way things fall with Spooky Month and our end of the month thing, we usually push our end of the month special to the start of November. But Hellboy is kind of spooky. So we were like,
yeah, he's the one time we felt like we don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And we saved ourselves from having to explain that every week for 5 straight weeks.
Yeah, exactly. So here we are talking about some more Hellboy. Yeah, I'm excited to get into this one, but let me ask you this first, Melissa. Do you have any kind of Halloween plans? Did you go to a party this weekend at all, or are you doing something on Tuesday?
I normally host bar trivia on Tuesdays, but my venue decided to cancel a couple days ago. I guess they thought they wouldn't get enough people to make it worth my while to come in. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do on Halloween. Just make my hot dog mummies like I do every year.
You've been released to go trick or treat.
Eat a bunch of Reese's cups. Find a movie that's scary enough for me, but not too scary for my roommate.
There you go. Good stuff. Good stuff. I don't think my partner and I will be doing much on Tuesday night except for passing out candy. We've already started our annual watch of Over the Garden Wall, which is a fun one. And then yesterday we went to the Freak Festival here in Oklahoma City, which I wasn't sure what to expect. Like, just based off the name, I was like, okay, so it's gonna be like a bunch, like it's a circus thing, right? This is like circus freak thing, and no, not exactly. It was kind of a horror con slash goth con, if that just all sorts of weird oddities that you could find. It was a bunch of different vendors. They had a trick-or-treating thing so families could bring their kids and then come up to a bunch of the tables and get candy and stuff like that. But it was neat. It was fun. There was all kinds of people selling art and stickers and magnets and costume stuff, and yeah, it was fun. It was good. So,
did you see any good costumes?
We did. All kinds of elaborate ones, the like Japanese style like nurse mummies that have their like face all wrapped in I don't know. I just expect it to be from like some Resident Evil video game or some like Japanese horror movie. But yeah, we saw stuff like that. We saw people who were dressed up as like witches and wizards. I saw Miles Morales. I saw Spider-Gwen. I saw a Buzz Lightyear, who I guess is not really a goth, but yeah, no, that's okay.
Maybe on the inside, he loves Morrissey. We don't know what Buzz Lightyear gets up to in his alone time.
There's no sign of emo life anywhere.
There's like no hot topics to be found.
Right. Buzz Lightyear to Stark Command. We cannot find hot topic.
Buzz Lightyear to Star Command. Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort.
Great. But I will have more to tell you about that on the Captain's Log this next week and just our experience going there. But let's get back to Hellboy. And all of that stuff. So for this episode, we read volumes 7 through 9. And I am pulling up the Wikipedia page so I can get the names of these volumes here. Actually, I have them right here on my phone. That might be a little faster. 7 through 9, we read volume 7, The Troll Witch and Others, volume 8, Darkness Calls, and volume 9, Wild Hunt. So there you go. I have to say, kind of reading these volumes, especially these last two, Darkness Calls and The Wild Hunt, which it looks like were the first two parts of kind of a trilogy of volumes. We did not get that third part yet. We will do that next time at the end of November. But especially reading those last two volumes, this is where everything finally clicked into place for me. Because we've been reading a lot of like short stories, one-off, like here's a little 2-part story arc, and it's just like, oh yeah, there's this one time Hellboy did this, and there's this one time Hellboy did that. And I like those stories. Like some of them are fascinating, but they don't always kind of come together in the way that I was kind of expecting them to, or had hoped for, in the sense that I kind of wanted a more cohesive narrative. And I know that the volumes that we are reading aren't necessarily in publication order. There's a few things that are slightly out of place, moved around just to make, like, here's a volume that you can read here that's not all mixed up with stuff. But yeah, I think everything finally clicked into place for me, rating these books here. And I know on the cover of volume 9, it had a little like fake sticker on there that was like, well, we're reading it digitally. There's no, you can't put a sticker on something digital.
It's a digital sticker.
Yeah, it's fake. It's a fake sticker.
I like that you distrust that there ever was a literal sticker put onto any literal copy.
Well, I'm not talking about a literal copy. But so I look, my Dipper Pines Gravity Falls Journal 3 that I have here has a fake sticker that says #1 New York Times bestseller, and it looks like it's like scotch taped on there. And stuff like that. So anyways, fake stickers aside, it said on volume 9 like, now a hit movie or something like that. And immediately my mind went to the Guillermo del Toro ones, which they were just talking about in some of the introductions on the previous volumes. And
we're not reading the front matter when we page through each of these volumes to see exactly what year was this published, what year did these stories draw from. So we've been real lost in time. I know we started in like 1996.
Well, that's the thing. These stories were originally published back then, but this specific updated volume of what we read here is closer to like a 2019, 2020.
See, I have no idea when the volumes themselves were actually collected and published.
Because that sticker, and then if you read the intro in some of these volumes, there's a foreword from Mike Mignola talking about how David Harbour got cast in the movie as Hellboy. So it's like, oh, he's talking about the newer one from a couple years ago, not the Guillermo del Toro ones, which they were also talking about in the intros, like just a couple volumes ago. So it was strange to have that like disconnect from time. But I enjoyed it because these two volumes were like one big long narrative. And also started to tie in some of the characters from the short stories that we had read previously. So I enjoyed these a lot, but I've been talking for a little while. So Melissa, what did you think of these three volumes here?
I have struggled with thinking about them. I've struggled with thinking about the whole thing because I just want to chill out and enjoy it. Hellboy is my friend now. We've become quite close. And I look forward to reading his adventures every month. Yeah. But I wanted to, I look at these the way people will just throw on Columbo. Be like, I don't know what's happening. It's Columbo. He's doing his Columbo thing. And it's sort of how I've been like, he's Hellboy. He's Hellboying around.
Yeah, he is Hellboying around indeed. This was also because I know previously we talked about like we want to see Hellboy with cats because that was such a big thing in the movie, and we finally got some Hellboy with cats in this, or at least being followed by a bunch of cats in this one here. But yeah. This was interesting because these were the comics that the David Harbour Hellboy movie was based on. So that at least like I felt like I had some familiarity with them because even though I like the Guillermo del Toro Hellboy movies better, I don't really remember, like, okay, were they pulling from a specific comic other than the like origin? I don't really know. It could very well be that it was just like, yeah, we took the like first 3 volumes against him versus Rasputin, and I was like, okay, I don't remember that, but
yeah, it seems like those movies might have had less material to draw from, and Guillermo del Toro and any screenwriters who may have worked with. I haven't seen those movies in a while. I need to revisit them. May have extrapolated more, took characters like Abe Sapien and Liz and made them more of a presence when they're really not in the comics as much as you would think after watching those movies. But getting to this Wild Hunt volume, I could see how this was a more literal and faithful adaptation for turning that into the David Harbour movie, which I don't remember super clearly anymore, but these did refresh my memory a little bit. Like, right, there was like a witch on like a hill.
Yep.
There's a girl.
Indeed. Funny enough, you and I did an episode of the Reactor Core on that Hellboy movie. We did a whole spoiler cast on that. But yeah, if you had asked me like a couple days ago to remember anything from those movies, I would have been just like, I cannot help you at all.
I think Ian McShane is in it.
Yep.
Is that true?
That is.
Okay.
Always love a good Ian McShane.
We cover such a dense amount of content here over the last several years. If there is anything I have forgotten or absorbed on only a surface level, it is because we do such a volume. Yeah. Right. Like there's lots of topics that I really want to dive into. I've got lots of things I want to say and insights and perspectives and theories. And some weeks it's like, I just watched it or I just read it. It was pretty good. My brain needed a little break.
Well, let's see here. Let me do a quick kind of plot synopsis of what's happening right now. So recently, Hellboy has kind of been on a journey of self-discovery, right? He quit the BPRD in the last handful of volumes that we read, and his journey took him to some interesting places. That journey is continuing here in these 3 volumes that we read. We learn that he's kind of moving from place to place, staying with friends that he used to know, but it turns out that Hellboy ages differently, so a lot of these people have already passed away. But he's just still staying in their house, being like, well, they invited me that one time, right? Like,
right. It seems like he is like seeing ghosts and like not caring to think too hard about, would that person still be alive? Is this a ghost? Does this ghost mean me trouble? Like, yeah, he's talking to somebody who's like, we found you in the house of these sisters who died several years ago, and he's like, I don't see how that's any of your business whether they're alive
right? Yeah. But while he's doing that and trying to discover himself, Hecate has been incapacitated, and as a result, there is kind of a power vacuum. There's a bunch of dead witches that rise up and come back to life, and they want Hellboy to be their king. Meanwhile, Hellboy comes across Morgan Le Fay, who's also like, oh, hey, by the way, you're like the last known descendant of King Arthur, so technically you're the rightful heir to England. Congratulations, we want you to be our king.
We're gonna put you on money,
right?
Everybody's gonna pay for things with hell bucks now.
Yep, indeed, Hellcoin. Buy now, Hellcoin. And then on top of that, I like, he's also destined to be the king of hell once he beats Satan. So everyone just wants him to be king, be our king. And he's just like, no, I don't want to be king. I don't do this. I just stop making me be king. I don't want to do it. And yeah, he's just kind of in the middle of this like three-way tug of war to just like, hey, you were meant to lead here. And in the midst of that, the Baba Yaga is still after him. But things are starting to come together here with just a bunch of the characters we've seen in the past. Both the woman who had her baby replaced by that troll. We now see I don't know if troll is the right word, but he
changeling
grew up. Thank you. We see him a little bit more. He's the one that like summons this new queen who could potentially be the queen of the witches. And we see that the woman who had her baby replaced, we see her now. She's a major character in this arc.
No,
kind of.
Isn't this the baby? This is the baby grown up, right?
It might be.
Yeah. And that happened back in like the 50s or whatever, but she still looks like she's like 28 because the Fae folk have continued to visit her, and she's like, oh, they've been kind to me. So she's got this sort of enchantment over her that makes her look more youthful than she is. Really, she's known Hellboy for like 60 years.
Yeah, indeed. And so, yeah, we get to see Hellboy punch in a whole lot of stuff in here, which is always a blast.
All kinds, all new.
Yeah, that's kind of the plot synopsis. That's what Hellboy has been up to recently in these books. Did you want to add any other kind of final thoughts to that? Did I miss something?
We have a new artist on some of these volumes. Yes. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but I think for the last two volumes, or at least major stories that we read, Mike Mignola is still writing, and there's a new artist who's got a more detailed style, because Mignola's style is so minimalist on purpose. So it's got less of that blocky, shadowy, blunt sort of look to it, but just enough to make it feel familiar. It feels like it fits right in.
Yeah. The artist's name is Duncan Fegredo. I believe I pronounced that correctly. I hope I did. But yeah, his artwork is fantastic. It is very much inspired by Mignola, but not copying it. And then, of course, having Dave Stewart on the colors, just makes it all like it feels like it fits right in. So good stuff with that. Cool. Well, I say we take a quick break for some housekeeping, and when we come back, we will dive into these books here a little bit more in depth. So we will be right back. Here at the Whatnots, we make multiple different shows, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. If you enjoy our shows, patreon.com/thewhatnots is the best place to show your support. For just $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and at our $3 tier, a Patreon exclusive podcast, The Pilots Club. You can even get a shout out and thank you on most of our shows at the $5 tier. And if you're one of our patrons already, thank you so much. It means the world to us. You can find out more information on our website, thewhatnots.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in The Whatnots, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitch for video versions of the shows, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a hoodie or a mug or something else, head over to thewhatnots.com/store to pick up some merch today. All right, we are back. Once again, a big shout out to our Patreon supporters. We love you a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
It means a ton. Over on the Pilots Club this month, we got to talk about The Amazing Screw-On Head, which, yes, if you're a Mike Mignola fan, that might sound familiar because it is. This is an animated pilot that aired on Sci-Fi. Did not make it to a full show, but it is based off of a Mike Mignola comic of the same name. And I had a blast talking about that one. So go check out the Pilots Club on that. However, after we record this podcast here, we are about to record the Pilots Club for November, which is on Manifest, which is a show that I had been interested in for quite a while, considering I was a big fan of Lost and, plane. Weird thing happens to plane. What was mystery? I don't know.
We've covered weird planes several times. Yes. Fringe, passenger list.
Oh, yeah. Indeed. So be on the lookout for that. Of course, right here on the review show, we kind of already mentioned it, but this has been horror month all of October. We are wrapping things up this week. But this past week, Melissa, you and I got to talk about Mindhunter Season 1. This is one of my favorite shows, but it is based on true events about the FBI's behavioral science unit developing the way to study serial killers, as well as coining that term and stuff like that. And it was a blast. Not horror specifically, but horror adjacent for sure, because it is like a spooky psychological thriller with some real creepy vibes in there. Yeah, I like that one a lot. It's good. Over on the Captain's Log, we just recorded our Helloween special on that. If you guys are digging us here in costume for the review show, you should also go check out our Helloween special over on the Captain's Log, because we were also in costume on that, and some ridiculous costumes for sure. We had a blast. What we do every year with that is we take stories that we have talked about in the past year on the excuse me on the past year on the Captain's Log, and we twist them into horror stories, so things that happen to us, funny anecdotes, so on so forth. We take turns being like, how can we make this spooky? How can we make it scary? It's fun. It's a blast. And then last but not least, we have our reactions up to Loki season 2, episodes 3 and 4 is out there, and you can check it out. I think we had a fantastic discussion on our last one here. That is definitely something to check out. So yeah, I think that is kind of about it for
another bit of housekeeping. Just want to check in and remind everyone, John Wick is excommunicado in 30 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, good. Also, before I forget, November 1st, I think the day that this goes public is the day we are switching to our new RSS feeds. So just be on the lookout in case there's anything wonky with that. There should not be. You should not have to do anything with that on your end. But if there is something wonky going on, you might just need to unsubscribe and resubscribe, and that should fix it. But yeah, just a heads up with that we'll be switching to some new RSS feeds here. Yeah, okay. There we go. That is it. That's housekeeping. Let's get into spoilers for Hellboy volumes 7 through 9. Here we go. Okay. I know I really, before we get into the main story, that feels weird to say here, but those two volumes that have the bigger story, I do want to talk a little bit more about the artwork and stuff that I think is neat that both Mignola does and this new artist. Let me make sure I know their name once again. It was Duncan Fegredo, I believe. Duncan Fegredo. Yeah. So one thing I noticed in this first volume that we read here that I really, really enjoy that Mignola does is kind of in his panel layouts, he often keeps things very contained within his like squares or rectangles or stuff like that. But he makes them a little bit more dynamic in the sense that he then often cuts up these spaces into like smaller squares and rectangles than you might expect. And sometimes these panels don't have they don't have a main character. They don't have like the main scene. It feels like B-roll to what the story might be if this was translated into film. It's just like a panel of a skull or a bones, or like here's a fly or like a weird looking bug, right? And he just includes these little details in there with that, and I don't fully know what it means. I don't know there's supposed to be meaning in these things, but I feel like it adds meaning to these objects in weird ways because he's choosing to show you these things here. Is that something that you've picked up on in previous volumes at all as we've read this?
He is very good at atmosphere, at scene setting, at an establishing shot. I haven't thought as much about the insert panels as they are. That is a nice perspective.
Yeah, it on one hand just kind of feels like, well, I want to fill some space and I don't necessarily have and this is not to say it's like, oh shit, I'm running out of ideas. What do I put here? But like, it seems much more purposeful than I think I can latch myself on to. I'm in a similar way to the way that they do the shadows in the artwork, and it's just these thick, impenetrable black shadows, right? It feels like this is a similar thing of like, I know something's there, but I don't know what it is. And I kind of like that. Because in this sense, it's almost doing the opposite at the same time. It is showing you something instead of a lack of something. But I'm just like, I don't know why I'm looking at this. It's creepy. It fits in with the vibe, with the atmosphere, all of that stuff. And I like it. I enjoy it. But yeah, it was just like, huh. I was just starting to like truly zero in on this. Of like, this is something he has been doing. This is something that I've noticed but didn't know I noticed, if that makes sense. I don't know. But yeah, then as we said, we do get a new artist for these last two volumes. Did you have any observations with his art, things you liked about his art, stuff that stood out to you?
It is a nice change of pace to get some real intense details on some of these creatures. This might not be the same artist. There's another story called like Hellboy in Prague, maybe, that also has a non-Mignola artist, but I don't think it's this the one we're with for the Wild Hunt and those stories. There's like another guest artist on one of these. But that's a story where we see the city covered, like we see it lit up with spirits, like all sorts of different like weird funny ghouls.
I think
do you remember this one?
Artist that we've seen so far is Richard Corbin.
That might have been it.
He's done so he did the Macoma story in volume 7 here. He's done some of the cover art every now and then. I see him mostly as a cover artist, I think. But yeah, he seems to be one of the common collaborators, but not necessarily on the main art often, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I guess that does make sense, but yeah. So that may have been him. I don't think we've really encountered many other artists up till this point.
I think my commentary really suffers by not writing notes when I read this. Like this, I read this before I go to bed. My phone's already off. I'm kind of trying to unwind, and that means that my thoughts are not as wound up as they should be. The point I want to get to is the big baby, the big floating baby with the giant head and like this withered little body, just like not a human child. Not a human child at all. Some sort of other creature just floating around the skies. I loved that guy.
Yeah. I liked the sense of detail in Fegredo's artwork as well. It does to me make the art visceral. I think is too intense of a word, because I feel like it still has a bit of the minimalism that Mignola brought. But yeah, you can start to see like, oh yeah, I guess Hellboy's skin isn't necessarily smooth. Like it does have some hair.
Yeah, we had some of that for the first time,
or stuff like
he's
that.
He's all craggy and stubbly.
Yeah. And it's just like it's just enough detail to give you a few extra bits, right? For him to put his stamp on it and be like, yes, this is a different artist, but it's still the thing you know and are familiar with. And so yeah, I felt right at home looking at his artwork. Which I also was going through the like sketch pages and stuff that they have at the end of these volumes, and some of his notes and stuff like that. And there was a sketch of Hellboy doing something, I forget exactly what, but the note from the artist was like, this was one of the early sketches that I did for Mignola to try and like prove that like I was the right man for the job. And looking back at this, I don't know why they picked me. Like this sketch is all sorts of wrong. But yeah, his artwork, I think really tunes into stuff that Mignola is trying to get at. Just the way he does his line work, the way he does his creature design. He just did a phenomenal job honing in on that, but not being an exact copy. Like we saw in the amazing Skaruan head, like their mission was kind of different, not to make it their own, but like to make it like, let's make Mignola's artwork in like in animation style. Which I think is a completely different challenge in and of itself, which I think is also still fascinating to see of just like, wow, you can do his style perfectly. That's awesome. But yeah, I say kudos to Duncan Fegredo. Some good artwork. I like this. And I know he's not on the book all the time. There are other artists that come in and do things later on down the road, but we will see his name quite a bit down the road. So good stuff with that. Let's see, what did we have here in this first volume stories? Let me go. I kind of want to cover these short stories before
I do really like the structure of these volumes overall, that you have the larger main stories and then a lot of these miniature supporting stories that are just one shots. Hellboy goes to this place, he encounters this creature.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it like that is the thing we've mentioned before too, that like he is a character that feels like he can have this legendary status of just like, there was this one time. And it fits. It works. You can just see him be like, yeah, I don't mind a story where he's off in some different country. Who knows how he got there and is discovering some folklore from that country, or has discovered it once in the past, but is now encountering it a second time. Some good stuff there. So we get I kind of liked this Hydra and the lion
yeah, that
story.
was a fun story. I like the setup that this was a story his daughter tried to come up with when she was little. And later he's like, can I make that into a real story? Can I synthesize all these things she said when she was a little kid and make it coherent?
In the midst of that story, he's hiding this like it's the Hydra, this like 3-headed monster, and then the lion shows up. To which Hellboy stops, looks at the Hydra, and just says, "Do you know where that lion came from?" Which I thought was a great panel of his like signature sarcasm of just like, wait, you see that too, right?
The joy of Hellboy is that he's like, I'm a Hellboy. Very little surprises me. So to have him walk through all of these preposterous mythical circumstances with just mild bemusement, we're just like, it's another day, clock in, clock out. Punch a golem or whatever it is I'm up to.
Yep.
The times when he is like, huh? What's happening? Those are real gems.
Right. He's like, I'm fighting a Hydra. Why is there a lion here?
I'm busy.
Just a normal lion. This makes no sense. Why not like a 3-headed lion or a lion with wings, right? But no, just a normal lion. Let's see here. The Troll Witch. Was there anything interesting that I liked in this one? I don't really remember too much about
that's
this
the
Troll
one
Witch
where
here.
like there's the two sisters.
Correct.
And one of them's like turns into a troll. That was a nice one.
Yeah, and then she's keeping her sister's head like in a box in the closet or something. Something like that. That was a weird one. Let's see. The Vampire of Prague. This might be the one I think you're.
Yes, this is the one with the giant-headed like baby ghost, and there's like a nun with a knife stuck through her throat or whatever. We just get some very fun, abstract kind of ghouls wandering around who are less like this is part of a specific folklore or something. Maybe they are, but it's almost more as like visual, not quite gags. They're not silly enough to be gags, but it's a very playful story. I liked that one.
He mentions in his like little excerpt before this story, he says, "My first trip to Prague was with director Guillermo del Toro back in 2000 to scout locations for his Blade 2 film, and said to look for Kafka puppets." Just fun. He was like, he's there helping him scout for Blade 2.
Nice to know they've been friends for so long. He was there even for non-Hellboy movies.
Yeah, I like the bit in this one about the like different calibers of the grenades. He's like, use this one. Rarely ever use this second one here, and then he just rips one out and tosses it, and instantly sees that's the one he's not supposed to use, and he's just like, oh shit. It would happen to Hellboy like that. Oh well. I like these short stories a lot. I think there are a lot of fun. I do like seeing other artists on Hellboy too, and to see what their interpretations are. I will say I was not as drawn to the artwork in this Prague story as much. It felt too much like a departure from like the standard Hellboy look, but I still enjoyed it.
Oh, it's after being with one artist for so long, the artist being the creator, the primary creative voice on the story.
Yeah,
I like that we had a departure. I like that we did get to see him another way. And again, like we're getting this sort of density of details that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise with Mignola artwork.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I do think that is refreshing every now and then here. And then Makoma was the big last story that they did here in this volume. Which is this like strange, like, let me tell you a story that seems to be oddly about Hellboy, even though it's not really about Hellboy, but it is, but it's not. That one was fun. Some interesting creature design in that too. It's a good fun stuff in this book here. But I do want to get on to the these other two volumes here, because that had a big old chunk of meat for us to chew on for sure. So yeah, I didn't recognize, I think, that the second volume we read, volume 8, as much, but immediately once we get into volume 9, the one that has the fake sticker, it was like, oh yes, I do remember this like weird room where like these older white pasty gentlemen brought him in to be like, we're gonna go on a hunt. We want you to accompany us on the hunt for monsters. And it's like, okay. And then they betray him and they try and hunt him. And then he has this like weird trip where he feels like he's in a dreamland or something like that. But we'll get to that in a sec. This 8th volume, though, is more about Baba Yaga still kind of being after him. Of being like, hey, you took my eye, that one story so long ago. It's time for me to get you back, an eye for an eye, as they say. And she sends this like unkillable killer after Hellboy, who's just kind of chasing him nonstop. He gets chased into these woods where he gets protection from just more like fairy tale like beings, these giant wolves, and like the woodsman who's protecting them. It's a lot of fun. I liked this story a lot. That he is just kind of being like slowly chased, like not like run through the streets, but just like slow. This guy is walking and like he's after you, and he will get to you eventually, however long it takes.
He can't die because his soul was put in an egg, which is like inside a duck, inside a goat. Rabbit. There's like
inside a goat.
There's like so many turducken layers deep. And then to try and give right, and then when she wants to like give that soul more power, Baba Yaga has to kiss the goat. She just has to completely make out with a goat
to mouth, and like I read that as like she put her mouth on him to like mouth to mouth and breathe inside the goat, which then like lit up the inside of the goat. Like there was some light source on the inside that was like escaping then through the eyes. Just all kinds of weird stuff of just like, I don't get this. I don't understand, but that's what I like, right? It's just that weird things are happening.
Yeah, it's just fun. Pulling, I imagine these are details straight from folklore. I think the Mignola introductions have led us to believe that the weirdest stuff often is. He's like, I don't got to make this up. Yeah. Russian peasants in the 1500s made this up for me.
I bet she makes out with a goat, eh? That's the wrong accent entirely, but still.
We encounter Vasilisa at some point, who is... That was like a name I had buried. I took some sort of a myth and folklore class as an English major in college. And I'm like, I have not heard that name in 10 years, 10 or 12 years. And like it flooded,
Interesting.
not with memories. I was not flooded with memories. I did not remember who she was, but it's like I
This
had to hear
vague
this name a
sense, yeah.
bunch once 12 years ago. And then I finished that class and then I dropped all of that knowledge because I had another class after that. Vasilisa is, I think, a Cinderella equivalent.
Interesting.
And it's interesting. Yeah, she
Equivalent.
appears as this like little girl in this very ornate traditional dress with this headdress and everything. And we see her outside of the story. She comes back and she's in this final story with all the King Arthur mythos, just sort of appearing as this like guardian spirit to Hellboy. He's got that little bird also. I do like that this has largely been a story about all of these different mythic forces just existing in the shadows. There's no hints or clues. Suddenly just somebody is there. Suddenly a Baba Yaga. Suddenly a dark, creepy mermaid. They're all here. And they all know Hellboy. And they all have like plans and ideas for Hellboy. And he's like, I don't know any of this. Just let me sleep. I want to go back and take a nap on that dead lady's couch.
I want more pancakes.
But right. He is a man of simple pleasures. He doesn't want to be involved in any of this. It's a nice change of pace that there are some more friendly spirits out there who aren't his like immediate coworkers at the BPRD or folks he met, you know, growing up with Professor Broom or anything like that. Just if there's all these mythic forces in the world who know Hellboy and are like conniving and scheming for Hellboy, I like to see that there are some that are also on his side, that there are benevolent spirits out there also.
Yeah, or at least ones that recognize their own place in the food chain, so to speak, of like, look, I'm not powerful enough to like vie for Hellboy to be the king of whatever faction I want him to be king of, right? So I'm just gonna sit here and watch how it all plays out and see what happens. Yeah, that is nice to see them do that, or even to like provide bones in the way that Vasilisa does. She goes, here's these things here. It's that comb and something else. I don't remember what that second thing is. But yeah, that thing where he drops the comb and like a forest just immediately like springs up, which was awesome. There's just some fascinating stuff, fascinating details in there of there's like, I don't know how anyone would ever make up this stuff, whether it was Mike Mignola or some 15th century peasant who was just bored out of his mind, right? Some of this stuff is just so detailed, so creative, so wild. That is just it, like, to then bring it all together like that. I think is part of the genius of Mignola is like taking all of that stuff and weaving it into a tapestry that is fun and it makes sense and it makes a whole new story and is not just like, oh, you're just doing this other thing to like mash them together. I get it, but no, like he can make a genuinely interesting, good story with all of these things here. I also liked, I don't remember his name or what he was exactly, but that little like house troll spirit thing that was like in the stove, just kind of like waiting there. Hellboy walks in the house. He's like, hello, is anyone here? And no one really answers, but then he finds this like thing, this like troll spirit thing, I don't know, in the stove, and he's like, this is my house, I've been here like protecting this house for so long. And then immediately that's when the door gets smashed in, and the turducken assassin is is here like, Hellboy, I'm going to kill you. That stuff was not as familiar to me from the 2019 Hellboy movie, but definitely this last volume was. with this little pig man bringing this box up the hill to this lone tree and like reincarnating or something. This witch,
Queen Mab.
Yeah,
is that her? There's so many like mythical queens. We've met Hecate, we've met Baba Yaga, we get Morgan Le Fay in this story.
Right.
Every powerful woman from any folklore you've heard of, she encounters Hellboy at some point, for good or for ill.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, as blah 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 blah. Morgan Le Fay, Excalibur. I don't know. I at one point I thought there was someone named Nimue. Who am I thinking of?
I don't know. When you say that, I can't picture what those letters look like on the page. I don't got that.
Oh, well. Anyways.
I really have to be better prepared next month. I enjoy these books the way I enjoy a warm bath. And after you take a warm bath, you don't think about and analyze and remember the details of warm bath.
Sometimes that's all you need, though. There's nothing wrong with that. And if that's how you connect
you have a
to the story,
podcast you have to do.
But if that's how you connect to the story, that's A-okay, because chances are other people will connect in that same way. There's a lot of this that like I'm looking for like details and things I can in the art of like, but look at these panels that just focus on weird B-roll stuff, right? Like I'm trying to pull out those details, but also there's so much of this that I don't understand. It goes over my head. I don't know this folklore. I'm not familiar with that. So if it is more of a comfort food, right, where it's just like, yes, the adventures of good old Hellboy, right, and you can enjoy it that way, I think that's perfectly valid.
For a civilian, but not for a podcaster.
Anyways, so this was immediately a whole lot more familiar from that hunt that I mentioned earlier, to the trolls that he's beaten up, to this witch queen on the hill. I was like, okay, I vaguely remember all of this. I don't remember exactly how it all turns out. I remember this whole King Arthur stuff. He gets the sword of Excalibur. And I vaguely remember you and I, as we were discussing the movie, just being like, yeah, this was an angle I wasn't expecting. The whole Excalibur, like, King Arthurian legend stuff, because that's not necessarily something. I mean, like, it's not necessarily something I think of as like folklore's not the right word.
Exactly,
like
it's more of like
cryptid stuff that I often
it's more of like
Hellboy.
True legend, like sort of. It's got a higher status than your average story about a changeling or something. King Arthur, when you invoke him, you're invoking truly a big power and something that is sort of larger and more recognizable and has been told so many times in so many different ways and been interpreted and the mythology, the people put him on a pillar. People are like, King Arthur is a symbol. He's more of a symbol than your average vampire is.
Right. Yeah. Or even just like the obscurity of like Vasilisa. Like, I've never heard that name before. You had, but that was in some like college English myth course. Yeah. Right. And yeah, like there's certain like I like the obscure, these small details about the Baba Yaga, because the Baba Yaga, there's so many stories about her as well, but they're all just so different. They're all like, they all have some weird details about her that the other ones don't have, or stuff like that, where the story of King Arthur, there just kind of seem I know there are other interpretations, but like there seems to be a like the mainstream King Arthur interpretation.
Yes.
The Disney-fied, here is the sword in the stone thing like that. But yeah, it feels weird, that inclusion. But then to hear him talk about the story in his like little intro is also like, but this also makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Right. In Mignola's like in the way Mignola like sneaks comedy into these stories and stuff. He often approaches his stories with the like, wouldn't it be funny if, and then like, wouldn't it be funny if Hellboy got kidnapped by mermaids? Right. And then he makes sense like, this is an awesome story. This is so cool.
That's the thing, is that he's not going for very major mainstream, frequently retold bits of folklore. We don't get it's not in the fairy tale realm. We don't get Cinderella, we get Vasilisa. We're not getting like the Snow White or anything like that. So the King Arthur stuff is like, oh, that's a household name we're dealing with. Hellboy doesn't typically deal with household names in the realm of myth and legend.
Yeah.
But I do like how they tie that back, and how they have always talked about his demonic father, you know, his demonic destiny. And they remind him, you had a mother also. What legacy does she leave you? And to learn that she's like the bastard daughter of Mordred. And, you know, she's had like this long line of daughters, and Hellboy is the first son in generations and generations going back to Arthurian times. They're like, well, that leaves it to you.
Congratulations. Here's England. Yeah, like that is like that also fits in the like it feels very Hellboy for him to just be tugged in kind of all different directions of like, we want you over here, but there's a monster over there, but you could be king over here, but you could be king over here too, right? And he's just like, I'm gonna have to deal with all of this, aren't I? And this is
he left the BPRD behind, and that seems way simpler than any of this, right? Yeah. He's like, he hasn't even gone back to see Abe Sapien in a while. He's like, there is no place where there's not a major obstacle and set of expectations for him. He really doesn't have a lot of safe haven, so it makes sense that he's just crashing at a ghost's house. Yeah. And it's almost like you wonder if he's sort of going mad or like crumbling in some way, that like he's staying at somebody's house and it looks to him that that's a living person, and he's just not really thinking about how shouldn't that person be dead by now? Didn't I meet them decades and decades ago? And then you see that they are a ghost. Right. But it's also like, does it matter to him if he's staying in a ghost house? Like, is that truly worse than anything else he could be doing?
I mean, not to him.
These ghosts are nice. He's like, I'll stick with a nice ghost over like any living creature who's like rubbing its hands together at me. Like, yes, Hellboy, you will do great things.
Yeah. Like, I think you might be on to something there, because, yeah, there was a lot of pressure from his job, which is partly why he quit, but also this whole like, we want you to be the like king of hell, and he's just like, no, let me just escape from all of this, like let me go be alone for a little bit and discover like who I want to be. And on that journey, is that first we talked about it last time of like, there's that one scene where he's drinking in the bar by the beach there, and then we see a panel from like the outside of the bar looking in, and it's like him and the three skeletons that he's drinking with, even though he saw them as like real people, and that's in a more dreamlike state. But then you start to see him kind of make active choices to be in those situations when he's staying with these people that have already passed away. And then in the hunt, when he fights the trolls, there is a line afterwards where he's reflecting on this moment that he beat up and cut up and killed these trolls. He was like, I actually kind of really enjoyed that in a way that is scary to me, because I let loose on them, and in that instant his horns grew back.
Yeah.
He ripped them to shreds. And yeah, like it seems like he's still discovering himself, but he's actively making choices that are potentially concerning, or yeah, he's starting to question, like, but I like this stuff that I said I wouldn't do. Maybe I should explore that a little more here.
He's also in an environment at all times, just by how he lives in this wild world, where he can easily be tricked. He can easily be enchanted or mystified. I think there's a part in this final volume we were reading where he attacks all these, like he just grows the horns, he attacks people, and then he's like, wait, what was that? Did I really do that? Did I dream that? There's a part where he sees the funeral for Alice's dad, and he's like, was that a dream? I don't know what's real anymore. I could be in a dream state. Anybody could be enchanting me at any time. I don't have like a really strong grasp on what reality is anymore.
Yeah.
And what could I do when I'm misled? It made me think about the bit in Old Man Logan, where Logan thought he was killing a bunch of Sentinels or whatever, but really he was killing Hercules. The other X-Men.
Yeah. It's
what?
It's Hercules. The Old Man Logan story is meant to be a riff on Hercules killing his wife and kid. The way he was tricked, he thought that they were one thing, but it turned out to be his wife and kid. And Old Man Logan does the same thing. I don't know anything about
Hercules that's outside of that Disney movie. I gotta tell you, I thought you were talking about Hercules, the other Marvel character from the end of Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm like, no, I remember that happened to Logan.
No, that they do the same thing to him, and it's meant to be a direct reference to the trials of Hercules. So yeah. Yeah, so I think with this volume, we don't get to see the conclusion, though. So I'm hoping that this next volume that we read will be a conclusion, in the sense that hopefully he will finally figure out who he is. He will have a kind of return to form. He's now gone on the whole hero's journey thing, and he will come into his own. That's what I'm hoping for. I know we have those final 3 volumes of just the Hellboy comic, but I know his story continues on. I know there's all the BPRD comics. I was gonna
ask, these 12 volumes that we are reading over these months, is this a complete story? Is there something in this 12th volume we're going to read that is like, and that's the finale, I leave Hellboy to rest now? Or is it like, that's as much as we've done, maybe we'll come back later, or we did a spinoff, you can read about just the BPRD, or just Abe, or just Lobster Johnson, or whatever? Like, are we going towards a definite conclusion point in the series you and I are doing? I would imagine, because again, I haven't read, like, this is my first time reading all the Hellboy stuff, and knowing that there is a lot more stories being told in the Hellboy universe and still being made. The first issue of, I think, a giant robot Hellboy came out this past week of us recording this. So yeah, he's still making Hellboy stories. So I think if we get a conclusion, it's a conclusion to his, like, who am I
story arc. Who am I, Hellboy? And then, yeah, if we go into stories like Hellboy and the BPRD, he like we're not gonna have a whole arc of him being like, but who am I? Well, like where do I come from? Like he's already figured that out. So it's then maybe a conclusion of or an investigation of his relationship with the BPRD or the BPRD's adventures with him, right? I don't know. It feels just more like a conclusion of identity, if that makes sense. That's what I'm hoping for. But who knows? Who knows? Yeah, I had a blast with these. I'm excited to read these final 3 volumes next time. I don't know if I have much else to say on these 3 volumes here. Interesting that it was like, check out the brand new movie. That's the thing is, like, even though it jogged my memory of the movie as I was reading it, I also don't remember how that movie ends.
Me either. I intend to rewatch them. The first Hellboy movie, the first Guillermo del Toro Hellboy movie, is on Netflix. The other ones are probably somewhere. I just went to Netflix and there it was, right in front of me. I'm like, oh, good. I won't have to dig for this one when I want to rewatch it. And I asked my roommate if she was interested in watching it with me, and she's like, that's too scary. Hellboy's scary. I'm like, Hellboy's a friend. Have you seen him? He's like a big, gentle softy. She's like, I don't like it.
Movie.
Right. I'm like, this is no scarier than Doctor Strange or something. And she's like, I don't know. Just the way he looks creeps me out.
But he likes cats and pancakes.
Right. I'm like, this is not a perspective I've heard of before.
No, it's understandable.
Too scary.
Yeah. There's certain things that I'm like, you know me, I'm also a horror baby. I don't like scary things. But yeah, I can also do, like, I have a much higher tolerance for like horror comics and stuff like that. And if it has a different angle on the horror aspect, if it is like a psychological thriller and is that kind of horror, I can do that stuff. But there is also a lot of things that I'm just like, I don't know, that looks scary. I don't know if I want to do it. So understandable. Cool. Well, I would say this would be a good time for us to check in on bingo, but I still don't think we have any other kind of.
This feels like a story that should have given us a treasure map at some point, but that's the one sort of legendary adventure Hellboy hasn't gotten to go on.
3 volumes left, so we shall see what happens with that. But yeah, not much of an update for bingo. We've been pretty much at a standstill for that for quite a while. But yeah, there you go. We often save our recommendations for the first time we cover something and the last time we cover something on these end of the month specials. So we will give some recommendations the end of November when we finish up our coverage of Hellboy. Yeah, as far as next week goes, we already have what we are going to do picked out. Let me God, why am I blanking on the name?
It's Persona. It is Ingmar Bergman's Persona.
Yes. Persona film. Let me look this up. This is a Swedish film, 1966 Swedish film. This like avant-garde psychological drama, all in black and white. I've heard incredible things about the cinematography. But yeah, it's about a nurse and her patient who kind of have retreated into this beach house for just a little bit of not solitary confinement, but just to kind of like escape. Yeah.
Recuperation. Yes.
Recuperation. Yeah. And it starts to blur the lines between, is the patient even real? Is the nurse real? Are they one and the same? Is it, who knows what's happening here? You know me, I like a good psychological thriller. So I'm excited about that one. That's what we will be talking about next week. It is available on Max, on HBO Max, if you guys want to check it out with us. Persona. Yeah, there you go. That's what we will do. Start of November. But I think that about wraps up our podcast for this week. So, Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
I have a pretty empty so far, but I hope to do more with it. Letterboxd at Wilkywit, WILKYWIT.
There you go. You guys can find me at Yo Kyle Springer. And if you would like to stay up to date with us here at The Whatnots, we are at The Whatnots on most social media places. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. If you're watching this over on YouTube, we have plenty more videos for you to check out. That would help us out as well. But yeah, this has been number 277 of the Whatnots review show. And we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.